Hello, himbos! I've never said my name before. I'm the thoroughchurro. Some people have called me thoroughchurro, like to throw something, which is kind of funny, but it's thorough. I went and saw the Batman in a movie theater, an IMAX, big ass theater. COVID cases are down at the moment, so might as well get some, fun theater time going. By the way, the theater was getting more full, and the person sitting next to me brought a whole box of Taco Bell with him. So as I was just waiting for this movie to begin, I had to watch this guy chow down on this giant crunch wrap thing in my peripheral. It was safe to say the crowd was excited. The Batman was directed by Matt Reeves and starred the talents of Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, Colin Farrell, Paul Dano, Andy Serkis, and many more. The film follows a young, spry, but inexperienced Bruce Wayne as he tries to follow the clues left by the supervillain, the Riddler. To start with the production and cinematography, this film looks really good. From the beginning, the goals of this film was to establish a strong style. The city of Gotham looked dark and dirty. The costumes for the Riddler, Batman, as well as certain gang members in the city had a wonderful balance between eccentric but also practical and realistic. The best way to describe the style of this film is a sort of fusion between Tim Burton's Batman and Christopher Nolan's Batman, taking the best of the visuals and the feel of the two films and trying to balance it as much as possible. The beginning does a fantastic job setting up the tone, and for me personally, nailing the atmosphere of the environment. One of the things that really worked for me were the fight scenes. I thought the choreography and the direction of fight scenes were very well done. There were some pretty tense moments of action. The flow of the action was clean for the most part, and the bullets that ricocheted off his armor, I thought added a lot to the visuals of certain fight scenes. Batman was taking bullets like a champ in this one. However, in saying that, I feel like the music kind of went against the action at certain points. The music was a little overbearing. There were scenes that would have been much better if the music was removed, because the sound design alone added a lot to the fist fights and just the fight scenes in general. When Batboy punched somebody, you felt it. Batman was doing straight up combo breakers on some poor bastards, trying to get that achievement unlocked. Even though I did like the action, I do think the rating of this film does a bit of a disservice to it. I say that because there's some scenes that there should have been blood all over the place, but it's squeaky clean. Moving back again to the style, I do think there's quite a few influences outside of just, Batman films. There were some slight influences to Alfred Hitchcock and other noir films of that era. There was some stuff in the beginning of this movie that felt a lot like something from Psycho. From a technical sense, this film is really impressive, but I need to get into the other aspects that I unfortunately did not like. I gotta say, the pacing of this film was genuinely abysmal. For a 3-hour film, they did not use that runtime efficiently at all. And by the last hour, you really feel it. Within the plot, there's not a focal point or a real goal that feels like this movie is leading to. The vaguest plot point is to stop the Riddler, but the movie meanders through it, and I personally lost interest. I kinda got bored within the last hour. This is spoiler free, so I won't give anything away, but how a certain plot point concludes near the end of the film, I found it to be kinda lame. It was almost like the writers didn't know how to get to that point, so they kinda just did it. Like, Batman didn't really do anything or really use his intellect to get to that conclusion, it kinda just happened. And I thought the movie was gonna end around that point, but no. Not at all. There was like 40 minutes left of the film. And I just slumped down into my chair all jello-like and just uninterested in the last half hour of the film. There's a lot of sequences in this movie that felt really repetitive. Batman will go to the same several places on repeat for the whole film. Shit goes down in only like a handful of places. What a way to create a heavily stylized world and then keep the plot limited to only a few locations. As I said earlier, the film meanders. Subplots would develop throughout the film. A little romance develops between Batman and Catwoman. Come on, but there's no real chemistry. I'm really supposed to believe that these two are actually hitting it off when they know nothing about each other? Really, it's all just a bunch of half-cooked elements within the story, and in my opinion, it felt like nothing was successfully developed. And I just heard this today, the Penguin is having a spin-off TV series for HBO, and in hearing that, now I kind of understand why there was a lot of ideas kind of thrown into the film. Unfortunately, it feels like the reasoning behind it was a bit more corporate than I thought. That's Warner Brothers. And for the finale, as I said earlier, the movie doesn't lead up to its events. Batman discovers what's actually going to happen in the end by like the last 30 minutes. And then the final sequence just happens. It's very abrupt. A great example of the story, sorta undermining certain elements of the film, would be the car chase scene. The The car chase scene standing by itself is actually not that bad. It's exciting with some very restricted shots. The shots are very close to the actors, which is very intentional, which does tend to a more chaotic feel of the scene. However, my engagement can only go so far. A big problem I have with it is the story. The scenes that lead up to the car chase, what comes out of the car chase, it's kind of not interesting. When Batman would be driving his airplane car, I wasn't fully invested on his motivations, you know? I wasn't rooting for him to stop this guy. Just imagine if the story was sharper, the character motivations were more defined, that car chase scene would have been very effective. And the interrogation scene after the car chase was so unrewarding. Not necessarily the information alone. This is supposed to be an integral part of the story. Red herrings or not, whatever the information you get, it just doesn't have that power to it. And this one example can describe how I feel about many scenes. It's kind of disappointing. Let's talk about acting and performances. I actually really liked Robert Pattinson. He was in the suit for a lot of the film, but even out of the suit, I think he did a serviceable job. The only person I really didn't like in this film was Paul Dano as the Riddler. Not because he doesn't fit the role or he does a bad job, he actually does a good job for the most part, but because he was way too over the top for a lot of scenes. Several moments in this film, he would scream his lines, and it just did not work for me at all. If he just reeled it back a little, then I think it would have been way more effective. I personally don't think it's Paul Dano's fault. By the end of the day, it should have been the director telling him to, kind of reel it back. Or I guess that's what they wanted. I don't know. It didn't work for me. He just screamed way too much. I would find those moments really funny, and I would just laugh at how absurd it was. Especially when he was singing. It was definitely not going for a comedic moment, but that's how it came off.
You came. I've been trying.
Also, side note, also a little bit of a spoiler as well, but the Riddler is a YouTuber. And the moment he was talking to his followers was so fucking funny. I was in the theater cry laughing. Oh, it was so fucking good. When the Batman and the detective were trying to solve clues, they would always repeat words that we would see visually. Something would happen and one of the detectives would be like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And it would happen throughout the whole film. It's not personally a major issue for me, but like if the audience is really paying attention, you don't have to repeat things all the time. Like, come on. People are smarter than you think, we can follow along. The dialogue was also really cheesy at certain points. Batman would call himself Vengeance way too much, and every time after the first time was too many times. Oh my god, I almost forgot. In the final end scene, introduces a certain character. I won't say who, but it was awful. That character is well known and he has a signature trait to them, and it was the worst I've ever heard from that character in I think any Batman film. When you watch it, you'll know. It's the very end. There's probably someone out there thinking, dude, churro man. It's a punch action movie. Why don't you just sit and enjoy it? And to that, I say I wish I did. I really do. But the length just kept me from enjoying this at just surface level. Overall, even though I've had criticisms with this, I don't think this was a bad movie. Many audience members are having an amazing time with this film, and it's always cool to see films connect with a bunch of people. I understand that everybody gets different things out of movies and media. Like, someone might enjoy this film solely for reasons that I just don't get, because I don't read comic books or I don't watch a certain TV show. And as I say all of my criticisms, just know that this is what I got out of the movie, and this was my personal experience. If you liked it, man, good job. However, for me, I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. If you enjoyed this film or didn't, let me know in the comments. But that's all for me. Make sure to like and subscribe, please. Come on, let's get real. This is not as good as Alvin and the Chipmunks.